Directed to commission comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers are asked to please use the podium and state their name and address for the record. Is there anybody in the room that would like to make a comment? It can be on anything you'd like. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Pamela Bells with Presbyterian Homes and Services,
Can you give us an address too?
2845 North Hamlin Avenue in Roseville, Minnesota.
Okay.
5113. I am here tonight and just wanted to say we appreciate the opportunity for discussion under item 6F tonight on the Housing for the Elderly Overlay District. I just wanted to let you know that I am here tonight along with Carrie Ajak, our Regional Director of Operations for Wisconsin, and we are continuing the discussion and have had some really great discussions with members and staff on possible opportunities for amending the language to the Elderly Overlay District. The continuum of care for everyone, and the seniors don't progress in a one-to-one movement through IL, AL, memory care, care center. So we're hoping to amend it in a way that reflects more the actual movement that seniors have through a continuum in order to allow more housing in the areas where it's needed. Our internal data that we track as a key result area shows that 36% of our independent living residents skip assisted living and memory care and either through an event end up going to care center or hospice, or they choose to stay in their apartment for the rest of their days. So also supporting this trend, there is a lack of demand in assisted living in a lot of areas, including Pewaukee, and a positive demand for more independent options. So we are looking for something that would work for the seniors that are wanting to stay in Pewaukee or move back to Pewaukee to be close to their grandkids, and something that would work for the providers as well as something that would suit the village. So we look forward to being able to discuss this later tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we're going to move on. I will approval of the minutes of the regular planning commission meeting dated June 8th, 2023. I hope everyone's had a chance to look them over. Are there any comments, corrections as to the way they are presented this evening? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes dated June 8th, 2023.
A second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are hereby adopted. Item 5, old business, we have none. Item 6, under new business, I'm going to skip down because I think we have people here in the audience that are waiting for their particular discussion. First one will be 6B, review, discussion, and consultative feedback to applicant Mark Backus, DBA Streetworks, on his request for the village to introduce a means through which he could gain a conditional approval that would allow Backus Streetworks to hold his motor vehicle dealer license based at a B5 light industrial zone site, i.e. 600 Hickory Street. The applicant represents that there would be no outside display area for vehicles available for sale. The property is owned by Roadrunner Venture LLC and CO Matthew Backus. Mary, I guess we'll let you start.
Sure.
Oh, wait.
Before Mary gets to her staff report, just for the commission's information, the applicant, Matthew Backus, as well as Streetworks and the property owner, Roadrunner Venture LLC, are clients of my law firm, and they have been for some time. I have done work for Roadrunner Venture LLC in the past, but I do not believe there's any direct conflict with me sitting here in the applicant tonight, because he has not contacted me with regards whatsoever to this agenda item. I have had no communication with him regarding this agenda item, and I frankly was not aware of it until I got the agenda like you all did. So I don't believe there's a conflict, but I just want to make that disclosure to the commission.
Okay, thank you. And I don't think that we have any problem with that. Mary?
Sure. So Mr. Backus is a year plus in his new location here in the village over on Hickory Street. And he is essentially he refurbishes very special cars. And he also lists those for sale in various media outlets out of using his dealer's license that he currently has, Wisconsin automobile dealer's license that he has, that is essentially based at his old Waukesha, city of Waukesha business location. So they still do business there of a much more limited sort, but they would like to consolidate the principal place of their business to be here on Hickory Street. And our ordinance currently in the village, no district permits the use, sale of new or used automobiles. And so I've been told, it's never been a part of the code for as long as I'm here, but I've been told that it was, at the time this code was drafted, expressly omitted for whatever reasons. And so the question for the commission tonight is kind of twofold. One is, how do you feel about introducing that use as a prospective use, maybe a prospective conditional use, in the B5 zoning district, which is specifically the location, the zoning of the location that Mr. Backus, his business is in over on Hickory Street. And what would be the appropriate parameters if you were inclined to move in that direction? And so, you know, when I talked to him about it, or one of his guys, a little bit, and kind of, you know, picked through this. So a copy of the automobile dealer's license application is in your packet, and you'll see in there that they're required to have zoning approval for an appropriate site in order to secure their license, and it has to include at least one outdoor space for parking and display of a vehicle for sale, or all vehicles will be displayed indoors. So that's an either-or scenario. And it's my understanding, having talked to them, that they would be fine with the or all vehicles to be displayed for sale indoors, if any are going to be displayed. It's my sense that the nature of the use is such that they don't really display so much as they have the cars in inventory as a part of their refurbishing business. They put them on the social media outlets and specific sites related to cars of this type for sale. If somebody's interested, they come, they buy it, they don't buy it. And that's how that works. But still in all, it's an underlying use of newer used automobile sales, okay? So the question would be, do you want to introduce that in the B5 district? And if yes, what would be the parameters? You could limit it to excluding any outdoor vehicle displays. You could further limit it, and my feeling is that this might be an appropriate, you know, kind of a connection to make, and that would be to limit it to a maximum or an association with automobile approved automobile service or refurbishing enterprises, meaning there has to be a principal use of some sort of an automobile service on the site, and that the vehicle sales element of this would be incidental and subordinate to that use, okay? So exactly how that language would read out, I can't tell you that I've gone that far. The first step is really to take the temperature of the commission and see what your feelings are on that. So I'm going to turn it over to the commission for consultative discussion feedback.
Commission, any comments?
You know, and I know this, it's kind of, interestingly enough, Craig had talked about used car sales just a couple months ago, I think, in one of the discussions on what's allowed and what's not. And we always look at, change of, how business is done and change in culture, change in things like that. We've talked about moving parking limits. Less people are going to stores, so do we need to have these larger parking spaces requirements? And I think, if you could go back 20, 30 years when this was put into place, there probably was some discussion about, huge amounts of traffic and huge amounts of cars and in and out and things like that. And that's not how this is going to go. And I think the nature of social media, the nature of Craigslist, eBay, different websites, 95% of this sale is going to go where no one's ever going to even see the car, right? It's going to be kind of like hidden. Where I think that, keeping a business in the Pewaukee area when as a day-to-day basis of their business, nothing's really going to change than what they're doing right now. Those cars may not even end up being in Pewaukee anywhere. They could be in an offsite storage. They could be, they could be brokering the deal, bringing the car in for an hour just to transfer the deal to another customer. I don't know that it's going to impact us negatively in any way whatsoever. I think it's a positive option for Mr. Backus, and if we can word it in a way that does, make it an adjunct to the business, it makes sense to me.
Anyone else?
Yes, is Mr. Backus here?
I'm representing the company, I'm not Mr. Backus. He had a bit of an illness problem last minute.
Okay. I'd like to ask a few questions.
Yeah, no problem.
Sure. Please state your name and address for the
Sure. My name is Richard Calandro. I live at 4451 North Houston, actually in Milwaukee. But I'm representing 600 Hickory Street, Streetworks.
Okay.
How big is the building?
The facility overall, it's 30,000 square feet total.
Oh, okay, it's that big. All on one level.
I apologize, one level, but it's broken into several rooms. You could even go so far with your verbiage to say that our vehicles would have to stay in one particular room. We're really, really open to any verbiage that you guys want. Like you're saying, it's pretty much like, if you guys are familiar, bring a trailer. We sell cars at Cassandra's or Kern's. We don't ever have anything for sale. If you guys have ever been there, we do mostly Lamborghini, Ferrari, Iso Revolta restorations. We don't have space. But it's nice for our business to be able to have the dealer plates to drive, the cars, or like you said, transfer a customer from California. If you walked in today, we wouldn't have anything for sale that we could show you. It's just purely a placeholder, as it were, so that we can do legal business on the other websites and stuff.
So at any given time, what's about the maximum amount of automobiles you would have on?
In the premises for sale, or
Or just how many?
right about now, I should know this because I run the office, but right about now we're about probably 30-ish, 35 total vehicles. Customer cars would be 95% of that right now. The owner stores his vehicles there because it helps with commercial insurance and things like that. It's advantageous. So he stores some of his vehicles there, but right now, yeah, probably between 35 and 40 total.
Okay. I would want to see that no vehicles are put in front or outdoors on display with
Oh,
for
yeah.
sale signs.
No
That's
problem.
one qualifier I would look at.
If you guys wanted, even before then, if you were to visit the facility, you could see that we literally don't even have a space.
Okay.
If we were to place a vehicle for sale, we'd have, or if we had someone flying in to pick one up, we'd have to actually move that vehicle out of storage and then place it, because we're basically service bays for either body work, interior, or mechanical, and it's just straight service bays. There's no actual like parking indoors. The outdoor parking is just for employees. There's no display. Yeah, customers.
I would also look for only automobiles to be offered for sale, no trucks, no motorcycles.
Well,
Yeah.
you could have antique trucks or something that they could be working on, so.
Or do you mean
Yeah,
commercial
for
size?
Sale, yeah.
Commercial
like
size.
Commercial size.
Our basic problem is this is a great place and we love it and we're super happy to be at this location, especially with you guys versus Waukesha for whatever reasons. But we're selling, you know, $700,000, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million cars, and you don't need a lot for that. You know, we're not gonna have a customer just walk in off the street and say, hey, can I test drive that? It's purely for the digital world. And as
that street isn't frequently traveled,
Yeah,
so
and
people are
as-
just gonna drive. to work.
Exactly. And as it sits right now, with the dealership, I think we have 3 vehicles on the books. It's not like something where we have 20 or 30 and it's constantly selling. I believe we only sold 2 vehicles last year out of inventory. So it's pretty much to kind of be advantageous with the system as far as plates, things like that, storage, you know, things like that. But everything goes, you know, Cassandra sold a vehicle for us last year, I believe, or this spring. And then Kern sold a vehicle for us last year as well. And we sold a couple on Bring a Trailer when we were still in Waukesha. But right now, we don't have anything publicly listed anywhere.
I have a question for Mary, please. Where else do we have the B5 light industrial?
We've got it, you know, all the way along Hickory Street, straight out to its end at the cul-de-sac by Century Fence. We have it up along Sussex Street, here from the tracks down that frontage road where between the railroad tracks and Hickory Street, basically. That area is B5. From the tracks out to 16 is B5 on the south side until you get to Quick Trip. That's really our primary B5 areas.
So with those qualifiers, no motorcycles, commercial trucks, no outdoors display vehicles per se. I think this sounds fine with me. I would have no.
Being going to car shows with my dad, antique cars.
Buy sometime.
I love driving by. I like peeking in the windows. You guys did a great job of cleaning the space up from what it was when you guys took
Thanks.
it over. Even Custom Charisma was actually putting vehicles out on all the little humps on Forest Grove and putting for sale signs out even when they shouldn't. Agree, this is, 30, 40 years ago when nobody wanted Big Bill's used car shop to show up in the old Century lot. So I get that. I think we're talking with very specialized, customed, and why wouldn't you want to be proud and sell your product out of the location that you're working on it? I am open to anything that qualifies under, it could be an Indian motorcycle that someone wants some special stuff done on and then decides to sell it. I'm completely open. I love it. I have no problem with them displaying on Hickory Street if they want to. I love seeing all that stuff. And I think it's I think it a little more, not that, Pewaukee, but I think it's nicer to say that I bought this in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, So I'm all for whatever we do.
We don't need to display them. A rock chip is an expensive thing in our business.
Why I brought that up, because I don't want to open up.
Craig sent in something, can I read it as far as what he has asked, or no?
You know what I mean?
Provide his comments,
I want to
sure.
show everybody.
That's not,
And
That's why I brought.
as
I
you
agree.
guys were saying,
Already
it
noted
is our
it's not
secondary
here.
business, like you were
Record
saying.
noted is
So
not here.
if
So the
if
minutes
it's
will
written
just
like
reflect
that,
that he
that's
read it.
fantastic,
Yeah.
and that probably saves you guys a lot of hassle in the future too. Because if you were to look at our books, we'll do $3 million this year in restoration, and like I said, I think we've sold 2 cars. So you see where our main focus is.
I like the idea, though, that it sounds like you guys are growing your business. When you guys presented, what was that, early last
Yeah.
year? It was like, oh, no, we're not going to sell out of there. So I think it's good for our community that we have another unique niche. It's just that we want to write it so that we're preserving for the other B5 areas.
Matt, would we be able to write this in a way that, let's say down the road, we have another restoration shop that maybe isn't doing such a high-end vehicle that they don't want it outside, that we could set it in a way that they're allowed to display between like hours of operation. So if they wanted to put a car outside to like, hey, it's, you know, like,
Yeah, well, they're open and then they have to.
Velo
put it
City
inside.
does, you know, with their bike shop, they go and, you know, and put
great
something, put a bike outside,
Yeah.
and let it sit there for the day, but then it has to come inside, and that'll keep you from getting, you know, Bob's used car shop.
Yeah. Sure.
Because if they don't have the space inside,
I don't see why you
Okay.
couldn't restrict the outdoor display to hours of operation. That's fine.
at least it would give you an opportunity to put, you know, one thing outside it, 2 cars outside, or a
Right.
bike, you know,
Right,
motorcycle
well,
or
and-
something
and-
if you wanted to. Just
Yeah.
out of, depending on if this, you know, somebody comes into the B5 district that maybe has more of a, you know, high traffic area where it would make sense. You know, and then that's kind of a compromise of nothing outside to maybe at least put a flag up so somebody stops in and says, hey, that's a cool bike, let me check it out, or motorcycle or car or whatever, what is the shop, and then draw some maybe restoration business or service business to that
Absolutely.
business, so.
Okay, I'm going to read some, I don't know if you were all privy to the comments that Craig Roberts sent. Anyway, his comments were, this is not my opinion, this is his. Overall, I'm not interested in making any ordinance changes that create an opportunity for newer used car dealerships in the village. However, if we can modify the B5 zoning ordinance to allow conditional use of car sales, where the car sales are subordinate, in other words, there's more to the business than just selling cars, use for a business, and that the cars are not allowed to be displayed outside, I might be open to language such as that. With auto internet sales growing, I could see a situation that a specialty business such as Streetworks could advertise cars that they have restored online, and those interested would come to business to see the vehicle. So I believe that I would say that he is on board with the same situation, the comments that have been made. I would like to state that I have always liked the idea of a car dealership in the village. I think I was probably the only one for many years. I agree with everything you say. I think it is something that adds to it, and just everybody, as they said. I like the idea of allowing them to have 1 or 2 cars or whatever during the day outside displayed, as long as it doesn't junk up the place, and then they have to be put in at night. So just the hours of business, and that it would be just something, the sales of the cars is not their main business. It's either the repairing of, refurbishing, something that way. And with the price of trucks nowadays, I've been looking on the internet, and boy, I'll tell you, trucks aren't cheap anymore. I mean, 70, 80 grand for a pickup truck is not unusual. And then a lot of customizing of those trucks, you get well into the $200,000 range. I would have no problem with you doing that either, or motorcycles. Because here again, the cheapest thing when you buy a motorcycle is the motorcycle. Then you start customizing it. Been there, done it, so,
Way of the world.
yeah, you always personalize. So I am definitely on board 100% with everyone else here. So is there anything else you need to know, or?
I think that gives us a really good lead on how to go with the language draft, and we could bring that back next month,
Okay.
ready for public hearing and recommendation to the village board, where they would hold the public hearing and possibly adopt it.
Okay, now would he have to come back with something, or
After
this
the
is now?
language would be approved, then he would be eligible to submit an application for approval of that use.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Do we need any direction as far as like that, you know, subordinate side? Do we want to put a percentage on business, or
Or what?
for like, we're looking at this being, okay, it's the secondary side of the business, but you know, what do we want to consider as a secondary side? Obviously, you guys don't, you
Yeah.
guys, it's way small. It's a fraction, it's a percentage or two. But do we want to can we put a percentage on revenue, something like that, so we don't get a 50-50 split if we don't want to go that route, right?
I do have a quick question in regards to that. So we had a customer that wanted us to sell a car for him, but he ended up selling it before it left. This is a $3.7 million sale. So maybe it could be a transactional percentage, but I'd be a little bit worried about if it was like, oh, you could do 20% of your business, but maybe a transactional percentage, because that could be minuscule. It could be a 5% transaction percentage, because at that rate, that gives us the ability to, probably sell 10 cars a year based on how many invoices we would put out in an average year. But just throwing that out there, that makes that a little tricky.
Well, I guess, I thought of that before when you were talking about it, and what I was thinking that, the B5 is down there, there is a little car dealer, a car repair shop there. I think he's got one stall, maybe two, I think one in the front, one in the back. For him to be able to sell cars there, I don't think he'd be able to do it, because there's no room.
You mean like Lake Country Auto?
Yeah, well, Lake Country Auto, and also, I want to say Sam's, but it's not that. It's right behind the Citgo, Shell, whatever that one is.
BP over there. Yep.
What's that?
It's right next to the BP.
Oh,
on
Right,
Sussex.
Scott's.
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 So that's more like storage and
Yeah,
he's super
but
high
I just don't,
as well.
I don't think I don't think we would run into anything like that down the line. Plus, with his business, how would it, how could we do that? I mean, he could do $1.5 million in business a year, but 3 cars could be $12 million.
Yeah.
So it's hard to put a dollar amount on it, and
Would
that's,
you say it's secondary, selling selling of something would be secondary to their primary business?
right,
Which their primary business is
Repairs and restoration.
yeah,
yeah,
so it would have to be secondary.
Yeah.
Without putting a percentage on it, would that?
yeah, that would have to be it.
I hadn't thought to go to the revenues and percentages like that, only because it's very hard for us to figure out how we monitor and enforce that. But I think we have examples right in our current code of where we use the terms subordinate and incidental to the principal use of .
Yes.
So I think we can start by bridging onto that and, let it evolve uniquely attendant to this limited display area for accessory uses.
And I could go along with the motorcycles, like you mentioned, but commercial trucks,
Oh, commercial
We have
trucks.
no,
about that.
No, I'm
no
talking
commercial.
about pickup
No.
trucks and that kind of
No, no.
vehicle. Okay, is there anything else you need to know
No,
from
I
us?
appreciate your time.
Okay, thank
Forward to
you.
hearing from you guys. Have a
Good
good
luck.
night.
Thank you.
Okay, now I gotta go back in here. It'll be just a minute, I have to change my laptop here. Okay, item 6C is review, discussion, and possible action recommendation to the village board to release the existing pedestrian easement in effect at 321 Riverside Drive. The applicant property owner is Riverside 321 Partners LLC and Seal Christian Venka, pardon me. Mary?
The engineers for the developer of the 321 Riverside site did turn up an easement that was recorded previously on the property for pedestrian or park access that cut through the site. The commission might recall that underneath the 321 site, even back when it was a nursing home, there was a pre-existing plat laid out there. And it had public roadways platted out and all of the individual lots platted out. And this particular park and open space easement was in there as well. So as a part of laying their new plat over this same piece of real estate, we need to go through the process of vacating this particular pedestrian way. So really, the action that's asked of you this evening is to make a recommendation to the village board to vacate that area. And the map is pretty self-explanatory.
Any questions or comments?
There's no use for that in this,
Not in the new plat,
well,
No.
no.
okay, I don't have a problem with it.
I have a
Currently, that
motion.
would cut right through
The middle
people's
of-
yards
Yeah.
or houses, correct?
It would,
Okay.
yep.
Make a motion to approve the vacation, the removal
Recommendation.
as recommended.
Yeah, recommend to the village board.
Recommendation.
To remove
Recommendation
that.
to the village board to remove that easement as
Second.
written.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. I'm going to jump to E because, like I said, there's people here and I made a mistake. Item E, review, discussion, and possible action on conditional use grant request of Kansas Stidle DBA Maxine Bar LLC to have a small tavern space set aside within the footprint of her proposed specialty retail and custom scent mixing business tenant space located at 145 West Wisconsin Avenue. This property is Zone B2 Downtown Business District. The property owner is Joseph Grosh Development LLC. Mary?
Yep, so this is a conditional use grant request to have a small tavern space included within her 176 square foot overall tenants, or excuse me, into her overall tenant space, tavern space of 176 square feet. This is at 145 West Wisconsin Avenue. I believe it is the former Rylu tenant occupancy. So we have a similar situation to this, so we've got some experience with it over at the Handlebar, where they have bicycle display and retail and accessories, and then they also have a cordoned off area that is a conditional use permit for bar use. The proposed hours of operation are 10 a.m. to midnight daily. There is parking to support the use and the other non-residential spaces in the building that was set aside in the lower lot close to the river behind the building for the commercial spaces in this beachscape building. The commission is inclined toward a recommendation favorable. I had several conditions that you would consider attaching. Those would include that the applicant would acknowledge and accept that there's no open alcohol that can be served, carried, or consumed within her mix and bar tenant space, except within this 176 square foot cordoned off area as depicted in the support materials provided by the applicant in support of the request. So if you look down at this drawing of her tenant space, shrink that back a bit. You can see that this is her overall tenant space here. This is the main storefront entrance, and they are going to have, what they're proposing is a heavy-duty, like a 2-inch marine rope on stanchions going around this corner space right at the street front, where they would serve beer and wine. And then the balance of this would be right here is a mixing bar where they mix personal scent for people, but you can't carry your alcohol out of this cordoned off area. Clothes and accessories and so forth would be for sale too. Same setup as the handlebar. So the other conditions that I had suggested you would consider would be, first, that it's limited to that 176 square foot space. Second, that the applicant would submit for the village staff review and approval prior to the final collation of the exhibit to the conditional use grant, a revised plan for cordoning off the alcohol and bar area with a more substantial barrier than rope hung from stanchions. And our thought there is, and this stems from comments of the village clerk and concerns with how it went with Handlebar and wanting to make more certain that people won't be passing back and forth across the lines, basically, of this small space that's available for alcohol sales and consumption. And so that might take the form of a 4-foot-tall rigid railing permanently fastened to the floor. I did talk to the applicant about this condition being in the report, and she did say that the owner is not enthusiastic about the idea of putting any permanent attachments into the floor. You know, but I guess if the commission feels strongly about that, and I do know the clerk does, that would just be an obstacle they would have to figure out how to resolve. Maybe there's some other way to do it, to put a well-fixed railing in place that doesn't damage the floors. I don't know. Condition number 3 would be that the applicant would secure all necessary sign, building, and electric permits prior to the start of any construction or installation in support of the mix-in bar use at this site. And then finally, full execution and recording of the conditional use grant before the alcohol bar space in the business can be used to conduct sales, service, or consumption of alcohol. So she is, I believe, already setting up shop in there, and that's fine. She has permission to go ahead and begin business occupancy with all of the elements of her use except this alcohol bar element at this point. So with that, I'll turn it over to the commission for discussion and decision about whether you're inclined toward approving this conditional use.
Any questions or comments from the commission?
I think we should support the request from the clerk that the railings be in somewhat more of a permanent type.
A more fixed rail type.
Right.
Can I speak on behalf?
Hold on.
Please come up to the front.
And then one other-
It's up to the
Yeah, go ahead.
commission, but yeah.
Go
And one
ahead.
other thing, and she's aware she can only sell beer and wine at that bar, correct?
Well, whatever her licensure is.
Yeah, so licensure is not an issue here. This is
Yeah,
strictly
okay.
the use, so.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, I have a question. And maybe someone from the board, or team have more information in this. I haven't been to the Handlebar in quite a long time. So at the Handlebar, are consumers only allowed to be within a certain area? Because at the Handlebar, yes, there's the bar, and then there's the front window space, and then there's the sidewalk, and then there's the parking spaces, and I've seen people with consumption all around the building. And if I'm coming into this space, which I'm interested to seeing what it has to offer, I want to pick up my wine and I want to walk around the whole space where this bar is part of. So I'm perplexed why we're restricting to this one little spot here, and you can't pass your drink back and forth. And because I got news for you, I'm going to be one of those people that wants my drink. I'll stand on the other side and hand me the drink while I walk around. So, because then the next question is going to be, which would only make sense, is, well, we want 2 tables outside our front door. So I don't know. I'm perplexed by this. So what am I missing?
Right. Well, and I don't disagree with you. And then we look at, 3 weeks ago or a month ago when we allowed the sampling license to Lake and Pine, which I'm totally fine with. Mm-hmm. So now Lake and Pine, when there's ladies' night or Halloween or trick or treat or whenever they decide to do their samplings, which I'm fine with, they don't technically have a liquor license or a beer or wine license in the same realm, but then they're less restricted on what they're allowed to do than a business that has a liquor license or a beer and wine license or whatever they're able to secure based on what we have here in the village. And my second question was going to be, what's the 176? What's the ordinance behind that? And if it's linked to, if it's supposedly a similar option to Handlebar, which I don't want to throw them under the bus, but there was a recent birthday celebration there that I walked back to the bathroom with my drink and I walked back out and sat at the table outside, and it was kind of, I had no I had no idea that there was supposed to be a restriction in Handlebar and what that restriction's supposed to be. So that's, and where's that ordinance? Is there an ordinance that says this, or what's the reasoning behind this, if we can get a little more info?
I think I'll try to answer all of the questions you
Yeah,
guys raised. So
Did you make a list?
with respect to the handlebar, they do have a cordoned off area that was approved and a barrier surrounding that cordoned off area with one inlet, one outlet, where they can serve and consume alcohol. But it does also permit them to carry into the seated area at the overhead doors, at the window there, and onto the sidewalk where the railings are, and into the street dining area. So alcohol is permitted in all of those areas. It's not permitted anywhere else inside the retail premises, okay? So I don't want to use tonight to talk about what anybody's experiencing out there, but then, so I hope that answers your question about what they're allowed to do. Why did Handlebar come to us with a small bar and a large retail space? Because I think that's the balance they needed. I think they principally wanted to have that retail space, but a nichey little bar where guys could sit after they have a good bicycle ride and have a drink, and that was that. I'm surmising that might be the same case here, but we have the applicants to tell you about it. I didn't ask, why are you only using 176 feet? But that's what the application asked for. So that's what we're addressing tonight.
So there's nothing in a village or in a village ordinance or village code or conditional use that says, because you're this type of business, because you're retail, only this percentage of your space can be used as a bar area, and that's how they came up with 176.
No.
No.
Okay.
That sort of restriction would come when you have to describe the premises on the liquor license, but that's not part of the conditional use.
So there's nothing in our village that would stop them from going, here's our little bar area, walk around as you please.
Yeah. We'd actually like 250 of our square feet to be a bar. They could have asked for that. I'm guessing they're balancing their other uses in the space with
And I'd be
this.
interested to know why we're restricting it to 176.
Well, we didn't know, we couldn't restrict it.
We were, just when we met with Scott, he was, can I speak?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd love to hear the,
Maybe address.
yes.
So my name is Tim Steidel. I'm Kansas's husband. She sort of leaned over and said to me, "Can you speak for us?" So my address is 619 Main Street, Delafield, Wisconsin. I grew up in this area. I sailed on Pewaukee Lake. I've been around this area a long time. One thing about what we did is we had a business down in Florida that got hit by the hurricane. So instead of closing the shop up down there, we decided to bring it back up here to Wisconsin. And Joe had a spot available for us. Our business is unique. Down in Florida, we are able to sell wine and beer together in our storefront down there. We were able to have parties. The idea behind Kansas's business model is to be able to come in there and provide an atmosphere, a fun atmosphere for women and men to entertain and enjoy an evening together. The mixing bar is where you mix up and make your own proprietary scent to pipe into your house, or for cologne, perfumes, all sorts of different salt scrubs, also shampoos, dog conditioners, all that stuff. So when you're getting entertained by our mixologist, we also would have a wine or a beer that we could serve to our customers if they wanted to. Again, 21 and older. We're not sitting here, and most of the people are not. If we're common sense business people. We've owned businesses all of our lives. We're entrepreneurs. But with this being our new business here, we wanted to sit and work within the conditions that Scott was telling us. I mean, would I love to sell out of the main bar? Absolutely, because I did all the construction, building out this thing for her for shelving. I don't want to have to make another bar. I would love to leave it the way it is and play within the parameters that we have, because, like I said, we're going to be setting our foots into Pewaukee. This is not going to be, we've had, I think, 30, 40 people walk by and say, we're coming in. This sounds like a really cool place. Joel was really excited about us having the business space because we were looking at downtown Delafield as well, in the grain, because it was a good model for either communities. Pewaukee just has my heart because I sailed on Pewaukee and I've grown up being part of this area. So it's great to be on the beach. I think our business is going to do really well. Again, this is sort of what our we were sort of steered to create a small little bar. I think I
Well,
like some of the
I'm
other
gonna just
ideas.
interject, I'm guessing that stems from,
The handlebar.
well, the handlebar.
Yeah.
But because they don't want to preclude people under 21 or
Correct.
kids being
Right.
in the space. And whatever part of your space is
But-
open to kids or minors or people under 21 can't be the bar. So.
But see, the only other, like I asked Scott, I said, and I'm not trying to figure it out, but you know, when you look at the handlebar, I've been in there a bunch of times to do business with them. They do walk freely through there. They just have a hardwood floor that sort of meshes a different color than the retail spots, and that's where they sell their liquor on. They don't have a corrugated area off like you're explaining to them, and I'm not trying to get them in trouble. I do a lot of business with them.
I think we're over that bridge.
So again, I mean, when Scott says go look at the handlebar, we went in and I've been in there a bunch of times because my business partner rides bike for Velo City. And I would walk in there and I'm like, there's just a difference of colors of floors. And yet I'm got to put a wall up. And I agree with you very much. People that come in that are 21 and older, most of our clients are not young kids.
We haven't had a kid walk in.
Yeah. This is a very high-end boutique. I mean, our average dollar price is probably $150 to $200. You're not going to see kids shopping in there. So, I mean, it's a different thing. I mean, we just want to be able to have parties for our clients that come in, like ladies' night or an evening when people want to get together and rent our space out. Not rent it out, but they book a party. And we want to be able to sell them alcohol beverages for revenue for our business.
Terry, would there be any obstacle to not putting the railings around? I'm glad Commissioner Hoff brought that up. I would be the same way. Let me have a glass of wine and I'm gonna walk around and shop with it in my hand. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what,
I'm guessing that the liquor licensure requires that there be some sort of a boundary and an identified, spatial limit with a boundary.
Yeah, and that gets into the liquor license laws where there's different restrictions on where you can have a space that sells alcohol when there's non-alcohol related retail related to it. That's where that's going to be sorted out. So that may be another reason why that this is here. I guess I have a question. Is in the B2, does a tavern use have to be a subordinate use under the conditional use?
No.
Is that why we're limiting it? No,
No,
I didn't think
no.
so.
We allow
that's-
taverns as a
Okay,
as a
that's what I
conditional
thought.
use.
Well, and I guess, my other, I would go towards, and we don't have any in the village, but, the whole like painting and drinking
Pour and
wine,
brush.
Yeah,
pour and
pour and brush.
brush type stuff, like, that's open to all ages. And if the bar is open during that time, grab a glass of wine and go paint your picture and your kid's sitting next to you, right?
That is 100% true.
I can walk into Twisted Vine and my daughter can sit there at a patio table with me. Brendan's not going to kick her out. Maybe he should. I don't know that side of it, but it
Getting
seems
everybody
like
in trouble tonight.
I would assume that
We're just
she'd
gonna
go.
hit the downtown on our way home tonight just to double
I
check
guess
everything.
my question is like, because I feel like because they're serving wine or beer doesn't preclude someone from under 21 to walk into the premises, does it?
I don't know the liquor licensing.
It doesn't, as long as they stay out of the bar area.
So in the state of Wisconsin, my parents own a restaurant.
Perfect.
In the state of Wisconsin, minors can be in there with their parents. They cannot sit at the bar by themselves if they come in by themselves.
Right.
And you can also serve the parents and the parent can serve the child. Now, that's up to the establishment if they choose to do so. But it is, the state of Wisconsin says that the parent can legally serve their own child. You just have to hand it to.
And that's not something we're going to do.
That's not something we're gonna do, but I just know the law
Right.
because of the fact my parents have a restaurant.
Sure. But I think where they're coming from is they're not expecting or they don't foresee a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds walking in and wanting to sit in.
The clothes are too old for them.
Finally.
Right? So when I look at it, if their business model is they're comfortable with, hey, if a 17-year-old comes and walks in and sits down at the bar and says, I want to make some sense from home, they're going to say, I'm sorry, you can't. Because
Or is there,
Or what we can do too, then, when they come in and say that if they're underage and they want to mix sense, we have other side tables. We could use that as the designated area for underage kids to go to be able to work with them on creating their own scent just next to the bar. That would be for that age, the current bar that's there right now. 'Cause we have-
so it would be like
Yeah.
sitting in a booth.
Right, sitting in the booth, right, and they would just take it over there and work with them on the side tables, which we have pub tables. That's what we did down in Florida. Typically, what we did is when we didn't want to work with kids at the bar because we had normally many other older clientele sitting at the bar, and if kids come in, and 9 times out of 10, it always came in mom and a daughter.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't just kids. I mean, we probably down in Florida because we were this was originated in Naples, Florida. So we're in Collier County. So they're pretty strict, you know. Oh, nice. Good. Oh, so yeah. But we bought it 2 years ago down there, and then the hurricane sort of came through, and we were in, off of Vanderbilt Beach Road, so it sort of took out our shop. But anyhow, with that said, I mean, we just, we want to play within the parameters that you guys want us to play in. And, just like the car dealership, I was listening to them. I think you guys did a very good job on how to discover that for them so they could work as a business. We're looking to do here is sort of unique. It's sort of a different carve into a world that we're in. But we're not going to sell alcohol 24/7. We're going to sell it from basically 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock. We put till midnight only because of the fact that if we have a party that goes past 10 o'clock, a private party, we did not want to hamper ourselves for that evening. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we made the conditional use permit for times for alcohol sales till midnight only because of the fact that if we had to be open, the latest we would be open would be midnight if we had a private party. You know what I mean? So people that did have private parties with us typically were out of there by 10:30, 11.
Mary, what about this, if they had like a rack selling different types of wine near the front, near the register where it would expand where the alcohol, well, you know what I'm trying to get at? I'm trying to give them an option where they're not just have to stay with their glass of wine while shopping. Is there a way we can figure how we could get that?
I don't think I feel like we've kind of come to the conclusion they're not necessarily restricted to 176.
Yeah, they are, because, I mean, by this application, they are
By the
limited to
application.
176.
right.
I don't believe the commission could jump outside that box tonight.
I just want to state that having owned a bar in the Pewaukee area, we had separate areas for our diners, and we do have dining in the bar area. We were told minors could come in to the bar and go into the eating rooms only. They could not eat in anywhere close to a bar. So if a minor comes in, it has to be in a segregated, it's being opposite of what you want. You would have to segregate an area and block it off in some way that it would not be part of the bar
For the minors, you're saying?
for minors.
Yeah, and we can do that. That would be better, because quite honestly, my opinion is that from what I see, based upon our sales from our Florida business, it probably is 1% that comes in with younger people. Literally, it might be even a 0.5%, because 99.5% of our business is older adults. 21 and older, 30 and older, 40 and older, 60 and older. So that's what our primary business is. And when we looked at this from the approval for that, I wish we'd have known that, because I would have went for that side of it better. Because for me to put our pub tables and have the kids over in the other corner, if they come in, our staff would be well aware that, okay, they're underage, we have to get you over to this side of the room. And that's where you're going to work with our mixologist to create your own perfume or scent or whatever. Because, we don't know what Pewaukee is going to really bring us. It could bring us a whole host of younger people that we didn't have in Florida. but we did have a lot of families that came in, they were on vacation, or younger kids that were just bebopping around in the mall that we were in. They would come in and we just sort of, hey, we'll work with you over on the tables here. It was more intimate. It was a little bit nicer for them. It wasn't like they were crowded in this mixing scent bar. So for us, we can definitely play within any box you want to give us. Just not want to put walls in the building because it will hamper our space.
When are you
so
guys looking to open?
Tonight, what,
We are opening Monday.
We're opening Monday, but no beer sale. We're not doing anything. We're just opening the store to get the store open because it's bleeding me a lot and us a lot of money right now.
So to,
Would
so to Mary's point before, the plan that is before you tonight proposes 176 feet. And that's their plan, that's what the applicant has asked for. That was what was noticed, and that's what you're considering. If they want to bring back a plan for a more expansive area, that's up to them to amend their application to do that or file a new
So
application.
we table tonight's,
no, we don't table it because then we're tabling what they're presenting.
You need a new proposal.
Yeah, we need a
so
new
we don't,
proposal.
we do nothing.
We just do nothing on it right now.
So you can take no action, you can defer it if you want until they bring back an amended application with a different plan.
I would prefer it being deferred.
Yes, they meet once a month.
That's why I asked. when
I
you're
would,
opening.
I would definitely work close with Cassie and Scott. and
Well,
I'll
we
get
did with
involved too.
them, and they were sort of leading us down the wrong path. And from what I'm getting right
Right,
now,
well, I'll talk to them Monday. I'll have a meeting with them and
But that was
Cassie.
before they had the commission's feedback. And
Right.
The feedback has been supportive of a more expansive area than what staff had. So there's a difference between what staff pointed you to and what the commission is responsive to, so.
well, and when I explained to Scott, when I would talk to him, I go to church with him at the same church, believe it or not. It's funny to see that. But when I said to him about Velo City, that they don't really have a coordinated area, that they're basically a wood floor that just separates colors. And so it was sort of like one of those things where we were sort of led down. I mean, I would prefer to have a child's 21 and under area. It'll be a very small footprint in our business, or under 21 in a smaller footprint than having our whole business model, which I like better of us being able to walk around and have them, the experience more full with more of an alcohol beverage in their hand if they want to.
Sure.
This is not going to be a wild party. We're going to get people kicked out.
And that's
not-
just a departure from what your application says and what has been noticed to the public. So for those reasons, we're going to have you amend that.
That's fine.
The commission can't act on that. They can't give you more than what you asked for in that realm, if that makes sense.
We can give you less.
No, thank you.
I just want to
Would-
do a grand opening.
Right,
Would
so-
we,
No, opening Monday, grand opening was gonna be in August.
August. But when's your next meeting?
so
Go ahead.
let me
Heidi,
ask
Teresa, yeah.
this question. So because we've had this question, we've had this presented at 175 square feet. We have a quorum. I'm not going to get my verbiage right, but we would table it, or would we refer it back to,
Deferred.
You would defer it to allow the applicant to amend their application.
so we're locked because it's the,
Yes.
Right.
What they presented.
if they presented a new application, could we state that we leave it up to, what's the verbiage we use? We leave it up to staff so that we're time ticking away the summer. And they're opening on Monday, waiting until August. Thank you. That's another month away, that we have a business that could be prospering in our downtown area. So couldn't I say something appropriately that would allow for somebody to second it, for allow it to up to staff when it is resubmitted?
At this meeting?
Yes.
No. Because you don't have a plan in front of you besides what they've submitted. You can't make their plan for them.
Or we have had special meetings.
I think we have to publish a new public hearing notice that correctly identifies.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on
space
that,
of the area,
Mary.
So I don't think there's.
So
The board would like to have a special meeting, they could defer this to a certain date, if you would like.
We're gonna have to
Okay.
make a class 2 notice, so we're gonna have to send it in on a Wednesday to be published on the following Wednesday and the following Wednesday,
So I got one,
3 weeks out
oh, gotcha.
So we could
from
eliminate
next
a week
Wednesday.
if we have a special meeting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Is it,
right. So you'd save a week.
But your grand opening is when?
We were hoping third week in August.
You'd be okay at the next planning commission meeting.
But you have to wait 30 days after you guys agree with it for the liquor license.
So much time after, because once you approve it, then somebody else has to. I was told.
Yeah, there's another step.
Oh, the liquor license.
It is
they're-
30 days.
Oh, there's a 30-day, see, I don't deal with any of that.
So that's why we came now, because the caveat was 30 days from now.
does
No.
the liquor license have to go to village
They do
board, or is that
approve the
approved by
liquor
staff when it's just a beer
It's
wine?
village,
Staff.
village.
Have the premises first.
Has to go to the board to be approved.
Yeah, it
Oh,
goes to
that
the
one
board.
does? Okay.
Even as a beer wine?
They all do.
Okay. Could we, minus the substantial barriers, could we approve it as written? And then they could, just so they have that option, so they can do their open, they can apply for the liquor license because we've approved the bar, and then they,
But then their liquor license is gonna be limited to the 176 square feet.
If we
It's
take
too,
this?
just let them rewrite it. You play in their pool. It's a lot easier, Kansas. Seriously.
The only way this could be done legally is wait till August, or if the board so desires to have a special meeting on this particular item, they could do that.
But we're limited to the day for the special meeting, right? The notice?
We are.
We're limited?
Yeah.
And if it
Because
has
we'll have to
to-
amend the notice because it defines it as a small tavern space.
and if it has to go to village board for approval of the liquor license, it's not gonna really, I don't think it's gonna help you much more than a couple of days.
What about taking the current request, and then next month you apply for a conditional use permit amendment right away? And that would start the wheels turning on amending the CUP to change the expansive area. And then they would have to go to the board and ask for
You have to amend the liquor license.
an amendment to the liquor license.
Right,
But
to the
those are,
premises description, because the premises description on your liquor license, if we approve 176, it's gonna be limited to that 176.
Correct, I get that. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So then-
I've been
but then
dealing with
if
liquor
we-
all my life.
Yep, exactly. So then if we amend the CUP, then you're also gonna have to amend the
Yeah,
premises
yeah.
description.
The
So,
only thing that it has to go to the village board for is for the liquor license, though.
For their approval.
right,
But
this,
why
This
would we
could
have
be
to wait so long? What's holding it up from having a meeting next Thursday?
the public hearing for the planning commission meeting, so there was a
The
public
CUP.
hearing.
Oh,
tonight.
that's right,
Yes, we have the
planning,
public hearing
we
for
have
the
the public
CUP.
hearing,
Yeah.
yeah, I forgot about that. Nuts.
My suggestion, my wife will shoot me in the car, but I'm fine with that, because I'm used to taking the ball peen hammer in the head. But my suggestion is, we'll come back with a different plan, because I would rather have it done right than to have it done half-ass, excuse my language, and we don't get what we really truly want, which, if anyone wants to stop down at the store on Monday, please do, because my wife will be there on Monday, and please, she'll give you a whole idea of what it's gonna look like. Sure. Okay, so that way it gives you a better scenario, and then maybe someone can give us a little bit of some guidance through this, and we can get it right for the August 10th.
I think that's, the village attorney agrees with you, sir. So I think that's the best.
And I have a lot of friends that have lawyers, are lawyers, so I get it.
Is there any chance we could get like a one-day, like, use for our grand opening then? Because we still want to have our grand opening in August.
As far as selling,
Would that,
Yeah, for like a one-day.
It can only be for.
I think that would have to be something
It's
that,
a, yeah, it's a whole.
I can do for like,
that would have to go before the village board.
we have a,
No, it's not
Nonprofit.
501c3 yet.
but if it was some sort of a nonprofit, it would be similar to Lake and Pine, the
A
one,
whole different thing that has to be
The
approved
permit.
by village board.
Yeah.
Sample, the sampleable
I
wine.
think that was, yeah, something with the Kiwanis or something.
so when would we get our, like, if we got to the August 10th, this would be the September, whatever their meeting would be September, that's when we get the license approved. So it'd be September is when we could actually sell liquor then, right, in September?
September 5th, is that
The board,
the board meeting, right? First Tuesday?
well, it's not 30 days from the CUP approval.
Right, yeah.
We may be we may be meeting the 3rd, not the 2nd. It might be meeting on the Wednesday.
There is a village.
I'm asking to move the date over one day.
There is a village board meeting September 19th, though, which would be after.
What's that?
There's a village board meeting on the 19th of September,
Yeah.
which is 30 days after August 10th.
There you go.
So September 19th would be your earliest to get liquor license approval.
September 19th.
Yes.
Let me meet with Kathy tomorrow and see what we can do. I know we could, I want to make it legal, but if there's something that we can do that we can't think of right now.
Sure.
Because we don't handle liquor licenses here.
This is
This is just
use.
strictly,
Yeah.
This is the use, but you can
Yeah.
see how they're intertwined. It's-
right. And I will,
I've been at much of these village board meetings from Merton to Heartland to Oconomowoc to get liquor license approved for a lot of different things, so I totally get it, so.
Yeah,
So
and I
let-
can't guarantee if you amend the liquor license, you won't have to pay the fees again. I can't guarantee that.
yeah,
The
so,
liquor license fees, you might have to pay them again, and I
If
don't-
you would do an amendment.
If you were to do an amendment, like if you got it approved as it is, and then you amended the liquor license, you'd probably have to pay another liquor license fee.
I think it's only $100.
Well, not much. At this point right now, I've already got easily.
Earlier than.
Yeah. So you might have to
so,
pay another
yeah,
fee.
let me talk to Kathy and Scott and see what we can get and see if there's anything that there's possibilities of, and we'll get back to you.
You probably have her.
All my, information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to defer this?
Make a motion to defer.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, now you're,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
When you open, you may want to just keep track of how many young people are in there. That might be
We've been
beneficial
there
for the.
building, and we haven't had one child come in the last 3 weeks.
I understand, but
Yeah.
there's a beach there with a lot of young people.
Oh, yeah, I know. They luckily go all the
Trust me,
way
this
down.
year,
I don't
Prestige-
really want them in this.
Okay, but
They see our price tags and the clothes we have, definitely there's too much clothing what they wear.
Okay, thank you. Item F is review, discussion, and possible action recommendation to village board on the request of Senior Housing Partners, NCO, Ann O'Connor, and Development Manager, Senior Housing Partners, and owner representative Kirkland Crossing LLC to modify section 40.400.1 of the village code, increasing the percentage of units that may be used for senior independent living with a project developed under the Elderly Housing Overlay EHO zoning district. Mary?
Yep, so the commission is real familiar with this topic, and we've gone through a variety of past discussions about how to find a way to make our elderly housing overlay zoning district maybe a little more adept with the current, what we're hearing are the current and forecasted market trends as to divisions of types of use within these elderly housing developments, meaning memory care, assisted living, independent living, and how that spectrum is experiencing the demand in the market right now. And so I think there has been past consensus that we still like, the spectrum as the idea generally speaking, meaning a percentage of this kind of use, this kind of use, and this kind. But there was a willingness, I think, to introduce a slightly higher number of independent units as a percentage of the total mix. And so what's in front of you tonight is a draft of amended language, and it's very simple, it's very straightforward, where the code currently says that development projects that include housing for the elderly, independent living units shall only be permitted as a subordinate use within the development project, and which also has to include assisted living and nursing home units. And the number of independent living units can't exceed, and right now we say 50% of the total. And the applicant has said they would recommend 75%, and they've provided some empirical data about the current market trends and feel that that's a rational number. I think from staff's perspective, we really have to rely on the professionals to guide us in that respect. I'm not an expert in their industry, so I take that at face value. The only thing, they had submitted language drafted by themselves or their attorneys. And my suggestion is, if we are going to make a change from 50 to 75, that we would take out that portion of the first sentence there that says independent living units shall be permitted only as a subordinate use within a development project. If you're going to move it up to 75, you're not subordinate anymore. So that would be the only cleanup I would recommend as compared to what they submitted. Otherwise, that's as simple as it is, and I'm going to give it to the commission to decide how you would like to move on this. It would be a recommendation to the village board.
Questions or comments?
I think this is an appropriate change, increasing it to 75% and taking out that A that you mentioned with only as a subordinate use, taking that out. I have no issues with that.
So I just want to make sure, obviously this is a very long-term passionate issue for many reasons. So when we change this, we're changing it in our village ordinance. And so this would allow it to be changed at the number of elderly living locations that we have.
We only have 2 properties in the village right now that have the elderly housing overlay on them. So both of those would be eligible for this number and any future rezonings. You're never compelled, of course, to rezone a property, but if you do rezone something in the future to this overlay district, they will be, they'll enjoy the privilege of that.
And it's this property and then the new one that's being built.
Correct.
But the new one that's being built, their conditional use was approved under the current zoning code. So that code would be applicable. If they wanted to take advantage of this, they would have to amend their CUG.
Thank you.
Which we could not say, no, we don't want you to.
You'd have to come up with a reason.
I know, so they would,
Talked
basically,
about
they would
substantial
get the
evidence.
75.
Yeah, but they would have to amend it. They are under 50. They would be under 50. This is the other developments. They would still be under 50 unless they amend their CUG.
So we're not changing the, if they can have 200 units, and right now they can have 50% this, 50% that, they still have 200 units. Now they just want 100 of these, or 125, thank you, and 75 being the remainder. But still, they're still under the previous so many square feet, so many, no?
No, if they've got 200 units, 75% of those 200 units could be
Independent.
non-system.
Absolutely, and I'm all for that.
What she's asking though
But-
is the 200, the ceiling still, so the density requirements are
Density
still
requirements.
in existence. Yep.
Thank you. I don't always get the verbiage right, but my heart's in the right
And
spot.
then there's nothing tied to the potential new property from the current property in the mix in that or anything.
That would have to cream up in the details when they eventually
This is only
submit
for
their
existing-
project.
This is only for the existing property that's there.
This is just for a code change.
Just
So
the
this is
code.
not their CU. That has not come before you yet. This
Okay.
is, if you remember, they had 2 intertwined applications. And this one is changing the code village-wide,
Okay.
which they need to do if they want to make their CU application ripe. So this is the first step.
Okay.
So all of that, the attachment, I know there were parameters that we were attaching originally to an upswing on the percentage, but that's been completely stricken from any proposal here. This is just a straight adjustment up to 75 from 50, with no conditions.
Does Craig have anything for us on this one?
Well, he was okay with whatever the board decided as far as making the change because of some of the new policy. My problem is one, why is it not a subordinate use? Are you saying that 75 is now the normal and the other one is the subordinate use?
Well, what the paragraph says is that independent living units shall be permitted only as a subordinate use within a development project that also includes assisted living, nursing home units, et cetera.
Right.
And if you're going to up that number of how many units of the total can be independent to 75, then it's no longer true that independent living units shall be permitted only as a subordinate use. 75% exceeds subordinate in my mind.
So what would be considered a subordinate number? 60%? 70%?
Under 50 or under.
50 or
I think
less.
just, I
50
think you're
or
just taking
under.
a logical reading of subordinate as being more than 50,
Yeah,
less than 50.
Because ideally you have independent living, 50% of your use, and then 25 for assisted and 25 for nursing home. But we're seeing a decline in the people needing either the assisted living or the nursing home, or many people are so independent or have families that support them through that part that they skip the assisted and go right to the nursing home. So you have a need for more independent living and less for the other two.
And it's nice, it still ties the ordinance to require to still offer those other services, assisted living, hospice, things like that.
Right.
So you couldn't, in an overlay district, the way that it's written, they couldn't convert to only independent living. They still have to provide all the services, which is what we were
Yeah.
originally wanting to make sure didn't happen.
What we're seeing, and I can talk a little bit about this. What we're seeing is a lot of places are building and they have they have independent living, and then they go kind of directly to either memory care / nursing home. And so you still have one facility, but you kind of you're seeing that trend more for people.
AL is kind of disappearing a little bit.
I've noticed
Because
that in
they
my
could
work.
bring those type of services into their assisted living apartment if they need independent. Thank you for clarifying that. Or independent, they could have somebody come in and help them bathe,
Right.
where in the past they had to be in assisted living.
Yeah, I guess my biggest problem, and I'm for making maybe some changes here. Biggest problem is if you're gonna go, depending upon the size and of the units, the whole thing, everything. 2,
We're
3,
not
4,
touching the
500.
density, correct?
No, you're
We're not touching density, so.
What was your concern, Jeff?
The density.
Okay.
Density's not changing.
Once you get up to, if they can go 75% of the total density, that's gonna put a lot of issues before the village as far as street maintenance, traffic, everything like that. Although I do know that, you're probably gonna have maybe one car, unlikely 2 per unit, but you're still gonna have that one extra car. And to your point, we have it's 150 units, and
Yep.
75% more on that is gonna be a mess. And the same with over there, you're gonna have a lot of traffic. When they came, or when we were discussing it, whatever time it was before, we were looking at 60. And then when I saw 75, I went, holy cow.
Would it?
Let me clarify something with this though, Jeff. In having personal experience with 2 different types of independent living centers with my mother in the last 3 years. Most of those facilities, and I believe Kirkland Crossing is an example, they have vans that they take people to grocery stores and blah, 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 wherever. And once they reach the stage of moving into an independent living center, I mean, I bet you 25% are using walkers, like my mother. She doesn't have a car. Even though technically you could look at each independent living unit having a car, I've never seen that many. Any of the garages have empty spaces. There's usually more of a mix of people in what physical level they are as far as how active and independent, if they're driving or not.
What percentage of your independent living currently has cars, do you know? Or is there a national average, or is there data that you have?
Good evening, Pam Bells. I don't have any national data,
No, that's
but it is a topic that we talk about a lot on our development team, because we would rather build space that the residents would use and the residents is an amenity to the residents. So what we have found, and we actually just surveyed our Wisconsin campuses, is that about 80% of our garage spaces are utilized. The rest are not. Or we may allow staff to park there, that sort of thing, because a fair number of people do come to independent living, giving up their vehicles and relying on family, friends, and transportation from the campus. The other component is independent buildings have very little staff. And assisted living, once you get into other levels of care, you've got clinical staff and all the other staff that goes with it. That actually drives up the need for parking.
So you said 80%.
Okay.
Means
Mary,
20%
I have a question. When it comes to, okay, if we made the change to 75%, I'm talking about both, because it's probably going to affect both. What is our parking requirements for independent living?
For senior housing, we say that it is to be dealt with by the planning commission on a case-by-case basis, meaning presumably we defer to the applicant to give us guidance as to what they propose and how they come to that number they conclude.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. That'll help us.
Okay, so what do we got here? What do we have to do?
So if we do this, right, and they said 80%, so 80% is 80 cars, let's say out of the 100 they're allowed to have right now. You add another 25, 80% of 25 is 15, 20.
But keep in mind,
But they're also going to drop their staff levels.
exactly, I didn't even take that into consideration when I was looking. That's huge.
So assuming they would come back with a project plan, if this ordinance were changed, they would have to have a rational explanation for, and as staff, we would review what's proposed in terms of parking and try to dissect it and see if it makes any sense at all. And if it doesn't appear to, then we would ask the applicant to defend what they're proposing.
I'm very much in favor of helping whenever we can in the village, businesses or whatever that makes the community better. I just was hard to understand that, and one of the reasons I understood was that trying to get people to work, the assisted living and memory care is being harder and harder. It was just a surprise that, it was such a big jump from 60 to 75 or 50 to 75 that where are all these people going that do need assisted living and memory care? I mean, it's just, they're still out there, but it's just hard to believe that it's switching that far over. So I guess I'm done with my discussion. We'll wait till she gets back, because if we were to vote on it, the three of us could not approve it. We have to have 4.
You do, and just as a reminder, with only 4 here, any sort of approval would need vote.
All 4 of us,
Yep.
yeah.
I'm gonna just go offer her a lozenge if that's what she
Yeah.
wants.
I don't know if my bubbler would work.
She okay? Yep. Okay.
Back in a jiffy.
Gonna remind me to tell them to turn the volume up on the water fountains.
Oh,
That the way they dribble out of there is ridiculous.
Turn the volume up.
Yeah. Yeah, we know it's in the water bottle. So, is there any further discussion? If not, will somebody like to make a motion to recommend this change to the village board?
I make a motion to forward this recommendation to the village board with the planner recommendation that the sentence
Code changes?
that one, the subordinate, that under section 40.400.1, friend 1A, that the independent living unit shall be permitted only as a subordinate use,
That phrase comes out.
yes. And change to be 75% of combined total number of units.
I'll second.
You second? Yes. Okay. All right, there's a motion and a second. Are there any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. It will go to the village board for approval. Thank you. Okay, review, discussion, and possible recommendation to the village board regarding an ordinance to amend section 40.471 of the village code regarding the regulation of transient commercial lodging uses in residential district. This is village initiated item. I think there was changes made, correct? Housekeeping?
Yeah, housekeeping changes, so this is what happens when you try to put a new ordinance into an old one. Sometimes you gotta clean up what was there. So I think the intent of the ordinance was for the short-term rental to apply to any residents in the village. But the prior language in the ordinance spoke to properties located in residential districts. So what we're trying to do is make the short-term rental ordinance and all of the requirements and conditions that you already passed, try to make those applicable to any residential property, whether it's in a residential district or in a otherwise zoned district, but still being used as a residential property. As you know, there's a lot of properties in the village that, while they may not be in residentially zoned districts, they still are being used as residents for whatever reasons, whether they're legal non-conforming or planned development or anything like that. So really, we're just making this more expansive, and I think cleaning up the language to be consistent with the intent of the commission that this applied to any residents in the village.
Any questions or comments from the commission? If there are none, then I'll look for a motion to,
Wait.
what, I'm sorry, I missed you.
So we're saying what we put out for the transient housing, so for the VBROs and all of that, with regards to the main house that we talked about, and then the public hearing and everything else. And I know that was passed at, if someone could remind me what we all passed that at, I had COVID for that meeting. We had it completely open.
It's
In terms of the requirements that were
no
passed?
restrictions on days.
Yeah, there was no,
Full days and.
Everything was wide
minimum
open.
of 3 days.
okay.
And then there was a licensure requirement as
Yes,
well.
and then the licensures and.
And a yearly review and
Yep.
blah, blah, blah.
Fire code,
So we just want to make sure that
all that
those terms and conditions are applicable to residences, notwithstanding if they're in a residential zone. So if there's something in the B2 that's being used as a residence,
Technically,
It would
we
apply
didn't
to
think
that.
about it, but technically Beachscape isn't currently under, the condos there, they could VRBO it 1 night a week. Or they could do it
and that was,
one day.
yep, and the intent was always to have it apply to that.
Right.
But we kept language inadvertently in there from the former ordinance that spoke to districts, not use. So we just want to
Okay.
clean that up.
Cool.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, then I'll look for a motion to recommend the changes to the village board for approval.
I'll make a motion to recommend the changes to the village board as written.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is,
I can be opposed to it.
No, you can't, because then it can't pass. Because
Oh,
there's only 3 of
fine.
us.
There's only 3 of you.
We gotta have 4.
It
Fine,
has to be a majority of the commission, so,
so did you approve? Yes?
sure.
Okay.
okay. The reluctant aye.
Yes.
Okay.
It's really, you just,
Okay, review this.
you can do wrong.
Let's see, where are we down here? Review, discussion, and recommendation to the village board to approve the final plat of Riverside Preserve, a 36-lot plus 4 outlots, single-family residential subdivision. This 13-acre site located at 321 Riverside Drive is zoned R5, single-family residential with residential infill development overlay, RIRO. The property owner and applicant is Riverside 321 Partnership LLC and CO Christian Levanka.
Right. So this is a final plat. There is an existing approved preliminary plat on this site. When you approve a preliminary plat, it's essentially a promise to the developer that if they come back with a final plat that is substantially consistent, you will approve it. So from my review perspective, this is very consistent with the previously approved preliminary plat. And so I don't raise any objections, but recommend just a few conditions you would attach if you're inclined toward recommending approval of this to the village board. They would include that the applicant is required to comply fully with any and all requirements as set forth by the Wisconsin Department of Administration, who will also be reviewing this final plat. Comply fully with any requirements set forth by Waukesha County, who will also be reviewing the plat. And the same for the village's consulting engineer and director of public works, who have reviewed this final plat. And I know Tim may have some comments to share. But then lastly, that the applicant would be required to fulfill all the obligations of the development agreement associated with the plat, which obligations are prerequisite to the final plat approval and village placement of signatures onto the plat. So that may take the form of completing the improvements, or it may take the form of escrowing the right amounts of money to ensure that those improvements get made. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim and the commission.
All right, I did a technical review of the plat, and I agree with Mary in that it is in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat. Just some notes on, it was a subdivision plat that was created many, many years ago. It is a portion of that full subdivision plat that is being used for this particular development. Back in 1991, there was a road called Long Acre Road that was part of the plat, and that was officially vacated and taken off as being dedication, but the lot lines still remained throughout the duration of the nursing home that was there. What Wisconsin statutes allow is that when you have a plat and you're going to change the lot lines of the plat, then that would become what we call a replat. And so they have to make some indication on their, and these are some of my technical comments that I provided to them. They actually have to name it a replat of those lots, and they describe the lots on their plats. So they would have to put that on. They need signatures, of course. We require a 100-year elevation noted. There is a note regarding a 30-foot water main easement. One of the conditions would be we want that in a separate agreement, as opposed to just a statement on the plat that says 30-foot water main easement. We need a little bit more definition of what the rights and responsibilities are associated with that easement. So that should be done along with the final plat. There is some references to drainage easements that they say that they're granted to the Village of Pewaukee. It's my recommendation that those references be removed. The village should not be a party of those drainage easements. They're easements for the subdivisions, for water between the subdivision lots to move to their stormwater pond. And so we don't want to get into a situation, and I've run into this many times, where, it just says drainage easement on it, and the property owners in the future just assume, well, that easements go to the community, and so the community has to maintain it, and if it gets filled in with debris and whatever, then the village would have to clean it out. I don't want any part of that, and so we want to take that off. There was a comment during the preliminary plat, or I'm sorry, that was from the, I think our DPW, that said that, it might have come up at the Plan Commission as well, that the snow from that Oxbow Court would be plowed into Outlot 1, which is going to be owned by the homeowners association, and they would maintain that Outlot 1. Sorry, this phone's going nuts here, but so we should have a note that actually states that on there, so everybody's clear when they buy a lot, or when they know that that's going to happen, that they know that the homeowners association will have to maintain the outlot, but we can put our snow in there and it just comes off the road. Similar that we talked about, and this is what the one from Dan Nays, the DPW, was that when we plow those cul-de-sacs, there's a lot of driveways in those cul-de-sacs. There's not a lot of green space because the driveways are close together. We have this situation in other subdivisions, I'm sure the board knows that, but he wants a note on there that basically says, we're gonna be plowing snow in your driveways. Just so, whether the people see it or not when they buy the lot, at least it's a note on there that we could say, we made notice of that when we approved the plat, we are aware of that. And the last one was regarding the stormwater maintenance agreement. They did provide one, and I would say we don't have to have that as a condition of the final plat, because it's really only going to be signed by the developer. We are not a party to that agreement. It is really a declaration. I call it more of a declaration that they are going to maintain their stormwater management facilities. So I'm saying that we don't need to include item number 8 as a requirement of the plat. So I'm recommending approval of the final plat dated June 15th, 2023, subject to addressing the items 1 through 7.
Questions or comments from the board?
Mary, can you show us Lot 1, where the snow will be?
Outlot 1.
Outlot 1.
It's that first kind of turnaround at the bottom. Oxbow.
Oh, okay.
They're just plowing.
So they're
They're gonna plow it in the middle.
plow
They'll plow
snow
in the
into
middle,
here,
into the middle,
but this movement is going to put a lot of snow into the driveways as well.
as well as in the cul-de-sac. So that Outlaw 1 in the middle is going to be depressed, and then they have drains in there that drain it to the stormwater pond. So it's going to be, that's where the water is going to drain in there anyway. So the snow will melt in there, but we're basically giving ourselves permission to plow the snow into their private property. What's that?
And not call the village when they're mad.
Oh.
It's not gonna stop.
Well, so if you want to
I
add
can
that,
dream.
you can add that to it too.
I can dream.
You can call the village for any problems.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
No, it doesn't.
So we talk about that they have to follow all the rules of the DPW, Waukesha County. What about, I'm gonna bring up the DNR again. And I'm bringing up the DNR again because that is DNR property that it butts up against, the preserve there. And we also have the river, and the canoe, launch as well. Wouldn't we want them to make sure that they're following all of the DNR rules and regulations as well?
So the DNR doesn't have any authority over plat approval. I don't think they have any involvement at all.
Correct.
Correct. So, like Mary and Tim said, you're kind of hamstrung here by the statute because you have to approve something that is consistent with what the preliminary plat says. You had 2 staff members tell you that it is. So you can't add a condition outside of the scope that would make them have to comply with something they would not otherwise have to.
Thank you.
Because DNR is not involved, I don't think you can add them on there.
Okay. I know early on in the development, I did mention, because all of these homeowners are gonna need to be aware that there is arrows. I mean, there is bow hunting there is waterfowl hunting there. Is that something that when we talk about the homeowners association, that they have to again disclose or anything to people in that local area?
I know I have in the past, in some developments where there's an adjacent railroad, we'd have a note on there that says there is an adjacent railroad there.
Mhm.
And there's trains that actually
Have horns?
have horns
Crazy,
at
isn't
the
it?
time, unless you have a quiet zone, but it doesn't really stop people from complaining. It's not something that we cannot, it's not a condition of the plat. It's really a notification.
Right.
And I don't have a problem doing that unless we have
Putting a notation on the plat? I mean, if you want to recommend it, I don't see why you couldn't. What would the notification be?
that there's
Hunting on the DNR property?
Adjacent hunting grounds.
Adjacent hunt?
Right here on the plat, it does say, that it shows what the adjoining ownerships are, and it does show that this is owned by Waukesha County. We could ask them to just put in parentheses there, current use permits.
Right, just something informational. I don't
Right.
see
Yeah.
why that would be an issue.
Yeah.
If it's more of an informational thing, it's not any sort of legal notice by any means, but if it's more informational, I mean, the plat's full of informational items, so.
Yeah.
Because we will have homeowners that'll come back and go, I didn't know they could kill Bambi next door. Right out your back window. Then again, the homeowner in the cul-de-sac there might actually like that idea.
You could.
To each their own.
So are you suggesting that it just states that there is hunting on adjacent land?
DNR hunting property, or I mean, I don't know.
I don't-
There is a sign at the end of Riverside Drive. There is a sign at the end there that, as you come up to the property, to go into the field.
Does that say no, that there's hunting or what?
Mm-hmm.
I could look at the sign and say that. It's been a
I
while
haven't looked at it since before the whole Riverside thing started, but I did when we started bringing this up a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I do know hunters that use that property, so it's actually funny that the city is building on one side of it and the village is building on the other side of it. So those in between, there is a parking lot there, but people really don't know what the usage of that particular space is.
Maybe a note that just mirrors what that sign says.
Yeah. I'd rather not get into the word DNR
Right,
on
Sure.
that.
right.
Because
Because
there's,
who authorizes what?
yeah.
Right.
I have a
Hunting
question.
is typically isn't more of a community, I mean, it's regulated more by the community. I mean, there's state laws that generally, but
Right.
communities adopt hunting requirements like so many feet from a house and stuff like that. And I don't know if Pewaukee has that or not.
Well, and I asked those questions when Riverside was coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, because technically, if you are in the preserve, and as long as you're not shooting your stand, if you were in the cul-de-sac and you were right there, take one set of footsteps on that other line, you are free to shoot legally.
I guess any disclaimer or anything you put on there, I would just have a disclaimer that says for informational purposes only.
Okay.
There you go.
Could you just say, lands to the south owned by Waukesha County for parkland purposes, consult Waukesha County for permitted uses?
Jim, I'm looking at this one plat that we have here, and on Riverside Road, it states 60-foot public ROW. So that whole road is not belonging to the village? Only 60 feet of it from West Waterstone Court, or not Waterstone, but from Ridgeway down the subdivision, and then it's only 60 feet that we own, and then the rest is owned by the subdivision?
Well, it's, so up on the right there, Riverside Drive is a public right of way.
Already.
It's a public road.
It is a public road, all the way down.
It's all the way
Already.
down to the end is the public road, and there's
Okay.
actually
I just
pavement
wanted
on
to-
there.
And then you have about 15, maybe 15 feet maximum to the reserve.
This is.
At the
this
end of
is
the road.
Public right of way, all
Yeah.
the way down to here.
Yeah. And they own pieces. This subdivision will own that piece kind of where those lines are right there. And then there's an opening that is owned by, who owns that? I can't remember.
The village?
Yes, I think the village owns that.
Yeah, the canoe launch is back in there.
Oh, that's called River Hills Park Block 3 is that one. What does that say as ownership?
It's Village of Pewaukee.
Oh, it does the
Our
village.
canoe launch is back.
That's a
Okay.
park there, yeah.
Yeah, so they own, the subdivision owns the land to the south and land to the north of that park as outlots.
But they own no part of the road.
No part of the road.
Okay.
And they're not building houses on those are just outlots.
They are not.
Okay. I apologize, I was getting confused with the other plot, I kept looking back and forth.
This area is outlot. And there's the village park. And then this is another outlot.
Outlot.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions as it relates to the platting of this property? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve this to the village, or send it to the village board for approval with the planners and engineers' comments. And is there anything else we need to put in there, just that?
You want to add the informational note that Commissioner Hoff brought up?
Okay,
But someone needs to make a motion.
Motion to approve, to move to the village board with the, I'm terrible at that. Planner
and engineering.
and engineer's recommendations. And my note.
I'll second
Got
that.
enough info for her notes?
I think so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's hereby carried. There are no citizens here, so I will skip number 7. Adjournment is number 8.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time and patience and knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. I had the same feeling that we were gonna be golden tonight. but
Usually that happens, but
too much.
I'm Lisa Scott doing this.
Turning off the camera.
I suppose I shouldn't be saying that. We're on, huh?
Subdivision to do a no PRV.